Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cantor's Corner's Passover special. This Friday, our respective families will come together to celebrate our most famous story of how we went from the bondage of slavery to freedom. When we discuss slavery, the language we use suggests that slavery is a past phenomenon that does not exist today. I don't think this is the case. I believe most of the slavery we experience is so subtle, we don't notice it even when it takes hold of us or of our loved ones. Tens of millions of people in the U.S. today are suffering from addiction. And I'm not just talking about drugs like alcohol or prescription painkillers. I'm also talking about love addiction, shopping addiction, or food addiction, to name a few. Addiction is when a person becomes dependent on an activity or a substance that is habit-forming and is unable to stop doing the activity or taking the substance, even when they know the negative consequences of continued use. Our society, which includes our criminal justice system, views addiction as a moral issue, choosing to shun addicts or to incarcerate them. This makes recovery incredibly difficult. Studies have shown that addiction is not the result of bad moral fiber. When we do things like eat fatty foods, the pleasure center of our brains lights up. Thanks to millions of years of evolution, since it felt great when we did it before, we will want to do it again. Addiction is when pressing that feel-good button is prioritized, whether consciously or unconsciously, over other healthy or necessary activities. This means that addiction is a medical rather than a moral issue. What can we do for ourselves or for our friends who are suffering from addiction? First and foremost, make sure they know they're suffering from an addiction. It's hard to get better if the patient doesn't recognize there's a problem in the first place. To help with this, Addiction.com has a list of symptoms and of questions that a person can ask to recognize that an addiction exists. Let them know they're not alone. Because our society treats addicts like lepers instead of like patients, it's easy for them to feel isolated, which can only further exacerbate the issue. Help them get the help they need. Addiction.com has a very full list of medical rehab centers from across the U.S., along with advice on how to address the issue. I cannot stress how important it is to be with them and be there for them. Dealing with an addiction is incredibly taxing on the person and their family, especially since it's a chronic illness. Most people relapse soon after starting therapy, and even if a former addict has been clean for years, there's always the possibility of a relapse. It took the combined efforts of the entire people of Israel, plus God, to break free of slavery. Therefore, if we combine our efforts and invite God in to help, we can ensure that no one is bound by the shackles of addiction.